Hello and welcome to the unexpected part 3 of our Europe special. I'm once again joined by Jay Kelly and our special guest Dr Alan Noonan, again PhD in Europhile for those who missed the second part. I'm going to launch straight into it now. Is Europe democratic? Because I would say no. No,
it's not. It's a bureaucracy. It is an absolutely massive bureaucracy. We know that Irish people, for example, will vote for their TDs. Then the TDs produce the ministers. The ministers are on the Council of Europe, the ministerial councils. But most of it is an actual bureaucracy and a technocracy. And to be honest with you, Europe is so big and so diverse that that's the only way it can be. That's the only way it can work.
Is Ireland democratic? Do an awful lot of people feel so connected with the democratic process the way that it is in Ireland? Oh, he fixed the potholes. He's a fantastic man.
No, but this is it. This is the level that Irish people's minds work at anyway. If you had like Jose Manuel Barroso fixing the potholes, my God, we'd be so pro-Europe, it'd be unreal.
Well, all you have to do is go out and to South Cork and see the South Ring Road, which was built with European money, you know.
Yep.
Got to love the Germans for that. But I think that the problem with Europe is that there are levels. You're right. It's disconnected from the average voter. Byzantine, yes. And in that regard, it has an image problem, but it's designed in a federal way, like the American system. But
it's not federal.
Not anywhere near as democratic or as accountable as the federal system in America. I mean, like, America, for all its problems, you've got, what, 300, or it's more than 300 million people now, yeah?
Yeah, 303.
And they all do feel they can write to their congressman, they can write to their senator. So they do feel more of a connection. But who do you write to here? Do you write to your MEP? Do you? Really? No, you don't. And even if you did, it wouldn't make a difference because MEPs don't realistically have any power. So the most direct connection isn't that
it's true.
powerful.
From my experience with MEPs, most of the time all they do is go over to Brussels, have a few drinks and complain about going to Strasbourg once a year.
Well, so which way do you want it? Do you want like national, do you want the unique groups the unique groups around Europe, the countries themselves, to have more power, which is why Europe lacks power? Or do you want Europe to have more power? And it's a question that a lot of people aren't able to answer because we're at the moment trying to...
Go ahead.
To be honest with you, yeah.
Answer it, Jay.
Okay, look, I think you have to look at it from a realistic point of view, which is that Europe is going to get more power. What we need to do is see, and obviously Ireland isn't the country to do this because politically we're so weak in terms of our leadership that they won't be able to do anything as they've shown already. I mean, not since the early 1990s, Albert Reynolds, last guy to actually get anything, and that was a load of money. It is going to become more powerful. The question is whether or not there can be made more of a connection. And one thing, for example, would be a European president, maybe not a very strong, powerful president, but somebody elected directly so that you could have an Irish guy voting for a German or a Spaniard or whatever it was.
But I mean, the whole idea of the sort of European bureaucracy, Byzantine as it is, the Council of Europe, we all have representatives there. The small nations have huge power if they choose to use it. Now, part of the problem with Ireland and the way that our leaders have faced down Europe, you know, basically Germany, let's not say it was all Europeans, is that we didn't create this alliance of smaller nations to say, this is what we want, tell Germany what we want, and actually expect them to do something about it. At the moment, it's just Germany, France saying exactly what they want to see
Absolutely,
happen.
But Alan, one of the things, and it's always put out there, this idea of the alliance of the smaller nations, you know, that let's say Ireland and Greece and whatever. But when you think about it, Ireland, Greece and all these other smaller nations have a lot of competing interests as well. I mean, let's say they're geographically so diverse from each other. And then the other thing as well is that in terms of attracting foreign investment, I mean, they will be competing with each other as well. So it's very easy for the larger countries to divide and conquer that way. And that's one of the big problems too.
Yeah, I mean, what I'm sort of wary of with your point, Alan, that, you know, actually we need to step further into a stronger Europe, give more power away. What I'm worried about is that obviously is a situation that hasn't happened yet. And I don't want to...
It will happen though.
Yeah, but I don't want to go down the line, coming from the UK perspective, which is one of the big arguments that we have when we go over there and, you know, negotiate, I say, is that, you know, we don't want to go down that step. We don't want to take the step further down the line because the more power you give away, the harder it is to get that power back at a later stage.
True, but I mean, like Britain as well, also, just to throw this one in, Britain as well also doesn't want to see Europe coming too much together without it, and that is true.
No, it is true. I mean, we want to be in Europe, but we don't want to be in Europe, if I could put it that way.
And you know what, I don't think you're wrong. I think that Ireland has taken a similar position with us grasping on to this 12.5 corporate tax rate.
Yeah.
The idea that we can hold on to this and still be good Europeans. I think that what Ireland should have been doing is playing up to the idea of social justice. And that is, I think, a unifying force throughout Europe. I think Europeans, be it in Greece or Spain or Italy or Ireland, all of them are expecting a decent wage, support their families and workers' rights. I think that that is something that unifies people and something that the Labour parties throughout Europe have been very poorly putting forward to Irish people.
You made a great point, Alan, that about is it time for the rest of Europe to start dictating to Germany and not the other way around? Is it time for them to go back and say, look, you know what, you've made a lot of money off the backs of all of this austerity. You've made a lot of money off the back of the people who are suffering. It's now time for us to get something from you.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think that the democratic deficit that exists within the sort of hierarchy of the EU is actually a deficit of leadership within our own political class. I think that they've just shown a complete lack of vision where they could have taken alternative steps with the whole bailout, not bailing out all three banks.
Could have gone down the Iceland route and just said, you know what,
exactly,
go away.
Lump it. I don't think they realise that they have power in government. I think maybe they're perhaps just happy to kind of rumble on the old gravy train and allow themselves to draw their extra pensions and their whatever it is they get for the ink cartridges. But isn't that the democratic deficit as well? So you're talking just about the institution of the EU, and whether Britain is going to say, guys, we don't feel like we're representing what's going on. They can't be allowed to hold the whole system hostage like Cameron tried to do the last time, saying, this is what we want. If you can't do it our way, then it's the highway. Let Britain take the highway.
But then at the end of the day, he's a politician who has got a mandate from the people, and a lot of what he's putting across there was obviously voted on by the British people, and he's actually standing there, in a bit of a Thatcherite way, and actually standing up and saying, you know what, we don't want this. This is what we want, and if you don't like it, fine. But at least he's out there doing it. You haven't seen Irish politicians doing anything like that.
And they never will. I mean, that won't happen. But just to bring things back for a second, we talked about facing up to Germany, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely.
Just sort of like putting up them saying, look, we bought all your Volkswagens, we bought like your Opels, all this kind of stuff. Now you owe us. The truth of the matter is that won't happen, because while Germany right now has the money in its hands and everybody else needs that money, there is no standing up to them. You can sort of like wag the finger at them a little bit, but ultimately, what are you going to do? If it comes face to face, this is a nation that started 2 huge wars and killed a lot of Jews in Europe. I mean, they are not people to fuck with. They're not afraid of anybody.
Right,
don't
Alan,
mention the
step
war.
in, yeah.
No, I think that you're right, but we have to remember that Germany profited off of this whole bailout. It's German banks were the people who were making money off of
yeah, no,
loaning
absolutely.
it to the
There's
Irish
no
banks.
doubting that.
Yeah, but what's happened has Germany has controlled the narrative of what has happened. So
and will continue to do so.
Absolutely, because Irish politicians are cowering to them, and you have Michael Noonan going on, well, the feta cheese, thinking that he's smart. Like, he's not smart. He should be standing up for not just our interests, but European interests generally, but he's not. And he's allowing Germany to dictate this idea that, in fact, it's Germany who's saving Ireland and Greece and Portugal and Spain. It's not.
Do you think a problem there, though, is that the fact of the matter is that it comes down to there isn't this sort of central system, there isn't this political system there where, it's a toothless dog at the moment. It's like the UN, etc. There isn't a mechanism to put in place to stop, essentially, the bigger powers bully boying everybody else. There isn't that mechanism to stop that.
Yeah, I don't know if I think the mechanisms are in place actually within the EU. I think that if you never use the mechanisms, then that's the problem, and that's what we've seen from other countries like Ireland. I honestly think it is a deficit of leadership. I think that the Irish government and our representatives to Europe could use the sort of mechanisms of the EU itself against Germany very effectively. I think they're choosing not to because they're being told what to do.
They have no balls.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
and
they have no balls whatsoever.
They're happy to be told what to do.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing that's been happening for the last 10 years. The Irish Civil Service told the government exactly what way to run things, how to do things. The Irish government haven't been actually running this country for an awful long time.
Yeah. I mean, look, the truth of the matter about Ireland is that, it could be 800 years before we have a proper voice and any kind of proper say in Europe. And that's not Europe's fault. I mean, like, ultimately, when you look at it, it is still a free and open democracy. I mean, I know I said about the democratic deficit, but you can still say what you want, you can put things out there. But it is very much the way of Irish politicians, who, by the way, were chosen directly by the people. I mean, we do have, it is proportional representation. But I mean, their way of doing things is to just go down their knees and suck.
Is it time then to bring back a bit of handbag waving Thatcherism to Europe, and to slap that table and say no, no, no?
I'm not sure. I think what actually probably needs to happen is Irish.
Are you going to say the IRA, man? Are you going to say they have to fight against Germany now? Because I mean, I don't know if that'd work too well.
Well,
those dudes are really tough.
I'll try not to mention the war too much, but I do think that what probably needs to happen actually is that Irish people probably should take to the streets, and I'm as much to blame for anybody. I haven't actually been joining a part of these protests. I've kind of been whinging on the sidelines, and that probably is what needs to happen. Yeah. Irish people should probably be seen protesting this austerity regime that's being imposed by financial institutions on the European democracies. I think it's a case of the tail wagging the dog. It should be democracies imposing their will on...
Although unfortunately, coming from the UK perspective, taking to the streets and the rallying doesn't tend to do an awful lot. You have millions of people out on the streets saying we don't want this, we don't want that. Nothing much comes of it. It still goes down to the political system at the end of the day. And if that is screwed, not a lot can be done without, something more than just simply having a few banners and taking to the streets.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, I think we saw the biggest failure of the democratic principle when people rallied against the Iraq war all over Europe, all over the US, and we still went to war, and we say that we were neutral, but there were plenty of US planes flying through Shannon.
And keep in mind as well, that there were elections after the start of the Iraq war, and the same people were returned to power everywhere. So, I mean, actually the wars were endorsed that way. But I mean, it is very much a thing to do with the Irish people, that they need to start saying no, 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 instead of no, 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 which seems to be the Irish way.
Okay, I got an interesting question here. Come from one of the viewers. Should Ireland go back to the punt? Is it time to go back? Is it time to chuck the euro out and go back to the punt?
As much as I think Lady Gregory was, well looking on that note, she did look well. I don't think that we can. I don't think that we can pull a Switzerland or a Norway on it and an Iceland and try and stand up to these. I think in a globalised society, the Euro project...
Give me your succinct reason as to why Ireland can't do that.
Because we'd have to go sterling, and I really don't want to go back to the days where we are being told what London is telling us what to do rather than Brussels. I think in Brussels, at least we're a group of equals. In London, we never were a group of equals. Maybe going to the yuan would be a good idea, or the yen. The yen would be a nice change. I think that people would feel very rich when they decided to use thousands of yen in their pockets.
I suppose is that not a little bit hypocritical by saying you'd rather Europe run you, because you were saying that earlier that Europe running things in that sort of undemocratic way is not a good thing.
Yeah, well, like I said, I think that the deficit of democracy in Europe is our own fault as much as it is as much as it is.
But I suppose at least with your own currency, you can devalue, you can try and sort of
you're right. I think you're right. In a way, I am kind of dodging the question that if we had our own currency, we could completely devalue it. We could, we could sort of negotiate. Basically, what we could do is play down the debts, but we should be playing down the debts anyway. We shouldn't be paying those.
Yeah, absolutely. The money should have been held back. I mean,
Jay, what do you think on that?
I mean, to answer that question, I think certainly in the short term, if we went back to the punt, we'd be able to devalue it, and that, obviously, export would improve, all that kind of a thing. But then you have to look at the long term, which a lot of Irish people are very, very bad at doing, and the crash shows that. What would happen after that? Then we'd have Michael Noonan deciding what happens with the currency, and my God, we'd be bleeding out of our asses then. So I'd way prefer to stay with the euro.
So look, throughout all of this, we've essentially said that are you two both saying, both of you, that really it's the Irish people's fault?
Yes, I am anyway.
Unfortunately,
I'm going to say it's the Irish politicians' fault for the moment.
Except you've voted.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one. It is the Irish people's fault and the politicians' fault. But let's bring it back to the people. Pull your heads out of your asses.
Excellent stuff. Thank you again, Alan. Thank you very much for coming on. That was part 3 of our Europe special. Check us out on fecttv.com.